It is also good to keep in mind that the travel cost method can give estimates of parks their recreational value, but that the cost is unable to capture non-use values. For these type of non-use values, we cannot use revealed preference studies. So rather than looking at behavior, scholars try to obtain value estimates from stated preferences. However, many economists maintain that talk is cheap, so how can estimates based on it be valuable? As a more extensive introduction into contingent valuation, I recommend both an early criticism on the method by Diamond and Hausmann and a relatively recent literature review by Kling, Vanhoff and Sau. Kling and colleagues described that there were only about 50 studies using contingent valuation until the late 80s, and that this number exploded to several thousand since the Oil Pollution Act, in response to the Exxon oil spill, allowed passive use to be included in formulating damages. Not long thereafter, the United States, their National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, established a high-profile panel including Arrow and Soloff to discuss best practices for such contingent valuation studies. Kling and colleagues reviewed these best practices and prescribed the use of a referendum format where participants can respond to a posted price for a policy, preferably expressed using a familiar payment mechanism, for example in terms of a tax increase. It is also advised to describe the policy under evaluation as specific as possible, possibly including photos, videos, or graphs comparing the status quo with the proposed policy intervention. The response to a single price also has some drawbacks. The binary outcome variable is less informative than what could have been obtained using choice experiments or price lists. In either case, it is a good idea to pre-test the posted prices with the focus group and to include comprehension questions for checks during the experiment. Diamond and Hausmann point at some problems with the contingent valuation method. First, using studies that combine contingent valuation with verbal protocol analysis, that is, studies that asked participants to think out loud about the questions, revealed that rather than thinking about how much they valued a certain natural area or species, most participants expressed a general concern for the environment or what they thought they and other participants should do. As a result, comparisons of resulting willingness to pay from the contingent valuation studies sometimes make little sense. For example, willingness to pay is often hardly responsive to scope, with the willingness to pay for cleaning up one lake being nearly equal to that of cleaning up multiple lakes, including the single lake. Or a second problematic outcome has been that the valuation to save seals depended on whether the question was asked before or after a similar valuation question was asked about saving whales. Other problematic findings for the method are that the willingness to pay depends on the payment mechanism used or the source of the problem. At the same time, whether you see something as a problematic feature of a method also depends on the theoretical lens from which you review its validity. For example, Diamond and Hausmann hold it against the contingent valuation method that the willingness to pay for a policy occurring is often not the same as the willingness to accept payment for this policy not occurring. However, this observation is only problematic from their neoclassical economics lens. From behavioral economics, we recognize this difference as the endowment effect. So, should we use contingent valuation estimates as input for determining public policy? Kling and colleagues are more favorable about the use of contingent valuation. When contingent valuation outcomes are checked against outcomes of actual referenda and experiments with real stakes, meta-analyses find evidence of overstating in contingent valuation with a median hypothetical bias of some 35%. Yet the estimates correlate with those obtained using revealed preference methods, and when contingent valuation explicitly excludes non-use values, it has even been shown to produce underestimates. By contrast, Diamond and Hausman contend that when contingent valuation measures beliefs rather than preferences, that policymakers would do better by acquiring expert opinion.